And right now it is time for This Week in the Lakeville Journal. We have, let me just set this all up here because I haven't done it. There we go. Mute.
Is Cynthia alone?
For now.
Okay.
We have Cynthia Hauswender in the middle studio. Good morning, Cynthia. Are you there? Yes, you are.
Hello.
There you are.
There you are.
I'm driving the boat by myself today. Anna's better things to do. What can I say?
Hey,
Captain.
I'm glad someone's got a life. Right?
Yeah, somebody's
making money.
And we've got Janet Manko joining us. Hello, Janet.
Hello.
Yeah, the phone line's working.
Janet, you are you have no idea how special you are.
We had Frontier say because we signed up again for we had a choice.
We got a bonus.
So we got a bonus. They're installing a new modem for us, right?
Nice.
So they came and installed the new modem, but when the guy left, our main line didn't work, and we have no second rollover line on our line.
Oh my gosh.
So you can dial our main number for the radio station and get absolutely nothing.
Nothing. It just rings.
Wow.
Yeah.
But this number works where people call in to go on air.
This one happens to work.
What might happen is if you saw the video of the king, Saudi Arabia's king on TV, if you saw the phone that was behind him, it's exactly like our phone system here. So maybe now our phone will ring
in Saudi Arabia.
In Saudi Arabia.
In the kingdom.
Riyadh.
Anyways.
Well,
we'll give it a try.
We want the king, not the crown prince.
The same employee who's here hating who he works for is coming back today. So this should be a lot of fun. Anyways, let's get on to the incredible debate that was held for our area, including both the local races, which had to be moved on site. That's just such good news.
And I want to say, because Janet won't say it, Janet did an extraordinary job pulling this thing together. It's always a lot of work. And then at 6, people started showing up at 5:15 for the 6:30 debate. And by 6:15, the whole room was full. And somebody came up to me and said, "You really have to move to the auditorium." And I was like, "Are you kidding? That's never going to be possible." And then Janet said, "We're moving to the auditorium." And everybody, there were hundreds of people, moved in a very orderly, swift fashion into that auditorium and filled all the seats pretty much in the downstairs and the upstairs. It was really incredible. And all the candidates were great, but especially we have to thank all the students because we had some student timers, and Soren Klula was our student questioner, and they all jumped out and were moving blackboards and tables and had such a great attitude. It was filled you with hope for the future.
So anyway, the debate was a huge success, so congratulations.
Congratulations to Janet, and thanks to all the people who showed up, and thank you for taping it. And of course, the live debate, or the debate can be seen on CATV6.
And it will be seen at least 3 times a day through the day before election.
And it was pretty lively, I thought. That for an hour and a half of questions, I thought it went pretty quickly, and really touched a lot of different topics and a lot of audience questions on I would say the wide range of topics that we know are of importance to the candidates. So I would say that everybody was pretty much the questions were in line with what the candidates have been talking about, which makes me feel like they're listening to what the voters want. Pretty much all 4 of them. So
yeah, I'd love to say these candidates were so cooperative from the very beginning. That's not always the case. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it can be very difficult to pull these candidate debates together. But we are very committed to doing it, and we are going to keep doing it as long as we can. And but these candidates, very cooperative, very collegial. They disagreed, but they did it in a gracious way. So really watch this. And thanks to Mike Flint, who was so flexible and just was like, "That's okay. I just set up this whole camera thing. I'll move the whole thing to the balcony in the auditorium. It's great, you know." So we're very happy to have it so everybody can either hear it or watch it.
Everybody has access to it, which is great.
And a great summary by Patrick Sullivan. He, I would say, touched on everything. And so this is, as we're moving into our campaign season now, Janet has endorsements, which she will talk about later. And we will have candidate profiles in our issue of November 1st, and we have the ballots for all of our 10 towns, which are slightly different, of course, for the Winsted, Colebrook, Norfolk, Barkhamsted have slightly different candidates than we do in the Region 1 towns.
Yeah, and all that will be in the paper next week.
All right. And in this week, right underneath that story, Patrick has a story on making it easy for everybody to vote.
Yeah.
That's right. So one of the campaign issues that we've been hearing about from I think Maria Horn and Johanna Hayes were talking about it at a recent event they did, is concerns that people are not being allowed full access to voting, and that especially for many people, not having a photo driver's license is is an impediment. And so, of course, in Connecticut, you're not required by law to have one, but it is more helpful to the registrars, and it is a little more orderly if you do have it. But if you don't have one, you're still, of course, allowed to vote, and so you just have to bring in some proof of your residency. But so Patrick did an interview at the request of the registrars in Salisbury and North Canaan about all the different ways that that voting is made accessible for people here. So please do read that if you have any concerns about your vote not being collected and about how you can make sure that it is.
All right, before we get on to the big mess at Highland Lake following the storm, and there's more pictures inside the Little Guilds Run and Wag fundraiser.
That's right. And that's actually Ruth Epstein's photo, but which is very cute. And so we have, I just thought it was sort of funny. This it's not funny, but at Highland Lake, they just put in this whole new plumbing system and drainage system, and they used plastic pipes instead of the old metal pipes, which had deteriorated in the way that metal can, and then of course it can't. The big storm came and destroyed the stormwater system, so they have to replace it. So that's it's not funny. It's horrible, expensive, but.
And Nature's Notebook by Bernie Drew. The garden gets a B-.
Yeah, Bernie and I decided that from now on we're not planting as many green beans, because especially in a year like this where you don't necessarily get as much yield from your other vegetables that you planted, and then the beans are just taunting you every day saying, you better pick me, because if you don't pick me, I'm not going to grow anymore. So we both decided next year half as many beans. But find out what else his garden did, because I bet your garden did the same thing.
Now, I think maybe next year, instead of grading the gardens, you should go on a proficient or non-proficient garden.
Meets expectations, doesn't meet expectations.
That's how I look at my garden, okay?
Right.
It's
Proficient or non-proficient.
not bad. It's okay,
All right. On page 2, an interesting story, why digital currency matters.
Dan Pelberg is this very interesting guy. He's in his, I'd say he's in his early 30s. He just got married and had moved to the area with his now wife, who works at Isabella Friedman, and is very, very savvy about digital stuff. And one of the things that we had he contacted us, which was to our delight, and said he was interested in writing about business and technology. And one of our owners, Dale McDonald, is very interested in Bitcoin and digital currency. And actually, I noticed Fidelity announced this week that they're going to be dealing in digital currency, which is mysterious and unregulated, which is why it's appealing to people. But of course, unregulated has its ups and its downs. So Dan could fill a book with stuff on digital currency, and we actually had a wonderful meeting with him where he talked to us in great detail about it. But here's a short summary of what digital currency is, in case you're wondering. And I think that everybody at this point needs to start thinking about what it is.
Well, unfortunately, probably 50% of the people don't know what regular currency is all about. Honest to gosh.
You're right.
Really, I mean, it's sad. But anyways, a great story here, because I, as a kid at Sharon Center School, years ago took a tour of Folk Legacy Records led by Sandy and Caroline Payton. So I've known them that long and been close to them that long, and they put together a weekend for Folk Legacy Records and also to honor Caroline.
Right.
And 75 to 80 people showed up, which was really great.
So Sandy Payton, of course, a legend in this area, and his wife Caroline, and among folk singers in the area. They're legendary for their small recording company and their saving of roots music from the area, and a beautiful old photo of the very handsome Sandy when he was a young man in Sharon, and of course, multiple generations of the family here. And Divya Simmers, who's such an extraordinary writer, is just adores Caroline, who is still off doing concerts and quite a tough music leader, and of course her sons Dave and Rob, all musicians, and just wrote a beautiful article about the celebration. And if you don't know about Folk Legacy and about the Payton family, it's really worth reading. And
of course, the Paytons numerous times have been state troubadours in Connecticut.
Right.
Because Connecticut has every year they appoint an official state troubadour.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. I want to go. I want to go on to, because I love the pictures on A4, sniffing, panting, and running at the Run and Wag 5K.
What we have here is a confluence of amazing photos by Tom Brown, who's so talented over in Cornwall, works at Cornwall Consolidated School, and is so generous with us with his work. But Leela Hawken, who's very funny and very dry, and just went around and was interviewing all the owners and their dogs about their strategies for winning. And you just have to read it. It's just funny.
Also, got a nice couple of stories. Patrick Sullivan the DM Hunt Library. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. Good food. What could be better?
Yeah, they have a really good, Falls Village knows how to throw a party. And Patrick, who's not a particularly social person, if you ever tried to say to him, you don't have to go to that party in Falls Village, he always goes, well, of course I'm going to go, because they're fun. So the DM Hunt Library has a great auction fundraiser every year and all sorts of interesting, quirky stuff, as befits a town full of interesting, quirky people.
And I love the story on the area FFAs from Nanawag, Woodbury coming to Housatonic. They had a get together.
Yeah, we have a couple of stories from Justine Allen, who is the FFA reporter this year. So they always have one student who works with us at the paper, and Patrick is a great teacher and always works with them. And I would say this young lady, Justine Allen, is very talented and has a lot of potential. And of course, we're hoping she'll be our summer intern one of these days, but did a really nice job of covering an event where there were students from all the area schools and put together meals for families in need. And we have a story from her next week, I believe, on a tour of area farms.
And look who made the paper.
I know, it's so funny. I keep saying to people, I look so anxious. I don't feel like I'm that anxious,
There
but I
she
guess I
is,
am.
ladies and gentlemen, in the Salisbury Rotary Club honors. Cynthia's in between two guys.
Two big men. That's right. The Rotary boys, John Hedbavney and Tim, who's the new head of Rotary, and a beautiful gesture, which is they had originally created an internship scholarship in honor of the late Bob Estabrook, who was a very devoted Rotary member, and of course Janet Mako, also a devoted Rotary member, and they not only have endowed the scholarship, but they also gave us this beautiful plaque with the names of the winning students, which is great because at this point we've had a lot of young people win this award, and it's very exciting for them, and it's exciting for us.
And if you look at that photo, the first names of those interns don't even fill up the first row, so they're very optimistic
Yes,
as far as
that's
how many
right.
interns we're going to have. It's great, and we're so appreciative to Pat Galloway and John Hedbavney for doing it and bringing it over to us.
All right, story on Pearson School getting its first playground.
It's funny, you think of Winsted as this big city, and then you've got Pearson School, which has never had a playground in 97 years. So it's quite it's a big deal for all of our schools. It's impossible to imagine any of our schools without a playground. Even tiny Lake Kellogg and Little Cornwall Consolidated all have really nice playgrounds. So the very first playground ever for the Pearson School.
And on that page, there's a complete rundown of the parties coming up in Kent.
I haven't heard from anybody if they're doing the Thriller.
I know, that's not on that list yet.
Yeah, and they never reach out and contact us. You have to look for it on Facebook.
I
Yeah,
Well,
so I don't know.
it'll
if
be
they're-
a surprise. I think it's better that way.
Maybe, yeah. Woo, what's that? But they usually put out a call for dancers around this time. But they've had so much student turnout, which is great. And they train them how to do the Thriller dance, which is fun to watch and fun to do.
Nice story on Whiting Mills in Winstead. I like a wickedly delicious destination.
And a great headline from Deb Alexinas, who has just been doing a phenomenal bang-up job for us. She's such a funny writer and so smart. And I had been to Whiting Mills, which is really actually very fun. They'd had an open studio tour over the summer. And I walked through and I kept saying, a lot of witchy stuff here. Like women really are into kind of like Wicca and sort of ghostly stuff. So I said to Deb, why don't you go over and do a story on Halloween stuff that they're doing? And so she just immediately knew what I was talking about, and she found these four wonderful women doing really interesting, lovely work. They're all sorts of diverse things, from toiletries and soaps to a photo booth where you can do steampunk and Victorian style stuff. And she's got a schedule and when you can go by there and see it.
All right, and circling around a variety of septic plans in Cornwall.
So it's ongoing to talk about the septic system there, and it's a big deal, of course, because it's right on the river, and there's all these small businesses. They're on the river. There's not a lot of opportunity for septic, so they're trying to work it out.
And nice story on the next page. I love the headline. For 90 years, they've had their ducks in a row.
I know, it's so funny. Deb Alexinas, she's so good. That's her headline. Everybody loved that headline.
Yeah, the Paratis.
The Paratis, heating and plumbing, and they do have their ducts, and they're in a row. And they're the fourth generation of the family, and of course there's the lovely Charlie Parati right in the center, and he is the second generation, I believe. And a really nice history, and they had their 90-year anniversary party last week, and Deb talks about it.
All right, I like this headline. Town meeting makes ponies tax-free.
Deb's got us all working a little harder on our headlines. But so Patrick went to a town meeting, and I just thought it was so funny that they were like, oh, and by the way, horses and ponies are not tax exempt. So what can I say?
All right, I want to move on. lots of obituaries.
You just never know. And I want to point out there's a very sad one, which is a young man named Galen Schwint. And we seem to not be in sync with the state police particularly. But, there had been that horrible accident on October 3rd, and a person had died in that crash. And the police weren't releasing the identity of the victim, but they released it right after it went to press. It was Galen Schwint. And a very, very sad end for him.
And my good buddy Peter Kuba passed away. I went on several golfing trips with Peter, and learned a whole lot about his life.
Didn't you steal a plant?
I didn't steal a plant. He stole a freshly planted tree in
He can't be prosecuted.
in North Carolina.
Holy smokes! And brought it back up here?
Yeah, in the back of my van. Yes.
Aiding
So
and
you are an
abetting.
accessory.
Aiding and abetting.
Yeah, I know. All right, let's go on to the editorial right now. The right tone for responsible governing.
Right. We talk about the debate and how it went and what we think the large turnout means, and encourage, of course, everybody to think about these things carefully. And it's so encouraging to know that so many of the people in the area are thinking about this and are so engaged. So thanks to everybody for coming out on Friday night. Not always an easy night to make it out for an evening event. And we were thrilled. I'm sure the candidates were thrilled to get their message out there in such a direct way. It was a civil discourse at its best, and you just don't always get that, so we talk about that.
All right, and of course, tons of letters in the paper, pro candidates, and also other things. But once again, I take you to Peter Steiner's cartoon, Capitol Hill Beer and Wine. We've got a new customer, Eddie Rock. Like eggs over to the Supreme Court.
Right, and the visual makes it. So
It does.
yeah, by all means, take a look at Peter's cartoon. He'll be away for a little while, but he's allowed. He's super faithful. We have 3 full pages of letters and plus a viewpoint page. So we're really trying to get every message out there that has been sent in to us. We're thrilled to have all of them, and you're right, there are a lot of election letters, but there are also a lot of other letters, and they're all interesting and all really well written. And don't miss Michael Clemens' letter on the flip side of invasives.
And yes, and part 3 on Cricket Valley.
Yes, part 3 on Cricket Valley. We're so glad to have this series from Blake Levitt. She researched this really carefully, and she has long experience in it, so do give this a read. If you want to see the other 2 parts, they're up online at tricornernews.com.
All right, and a story on page A13 about the hair lounge opening.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So the salon at in Millerton called Chad's. Chad Malarchuk passed away sort of suddenly, and there was a dispute about ownership of that property that was unhappy. And the staff had bonded very closely, including Chad's mother. And this should have been a TV show. So all of the women and men working at that salon and the spouses, many of whom it turned out were contractors, sort of quietly went and found a new location nearby in what used to be the pool building, I think. Yeah. And built a new salon there and have opened, and they have great spirit, and I hope that we all support them.
All right, A14, the health page.
Yeah, so the Carey Institute did a story on, and I think that we all know this, like don't flush your drugs down the toilet because they get into the water supply. But the same thing is true with household cleansers, which I think people are very cavalier about, sort of just dropping their bleach and stuff. So the Household Hazardous Waste event, I think, was last week, and I think it was on the 13th. So they do that once a year, but you really should be saving your, even your, bleach and things like that. I mean, sometimes I think people do cleanse their toilet with bleach, but don't be dumping your whole bottle of all these products down, because they will end up in your drinking water. And it's Drug Take Back Day on October 27th, and we have a listing. I think Troop B is doing one, Kent Town Hall is doing one, and Sharon Hospital is doing, I think, Needles and Sharps on the 27th. So do check those out and bring in your old drugs. Don't flush them. And then a very adorable photo of Alexander Wilburn. This was Get the Lakeville Journal staff photographs in the paper, and he was not happy about his photo, but he looks great. And I think we all are getting a little bit of a cold. Maybe it's an allergy, but I did a lot of research on whether homeopathic things work, and I was surprised that even the National Institutes of Health says meditation is a very powerful cure for the common cold.
All right.
All right, that's the health page, and I'm doing Compass.
You're doing
You ready?
Compass. We have 4 minutes, so you
That's
can
a
really
lot.
just
A minute per
cruise your way.
story.
Yeah.
Leanne Graham, excellent review of First Man, and Anne's headline is "Who was the first man on the moon?" And it's interesting when you read Leanne's review. It's a very good headline for that story, which is the mysterious Neil Armstrong and sort of his personality and how much that movie is about who Neil Armstrong was, and how well it's portrayed by Ryan Gosling. It's a very interesting review and makes you want to go see the movie. 15 years of art at Argosy. I'm Judith Singelis, and I think what used to be the Lakeville Journal's original offices, Janet, over in on
Yes.
Route 44. And so several local artists, including Etienne Delaserre, who we think of as a political cartoonist, but he has some beautiful artwork. The famous rock and roll Rolling Stone photographer Mark Seliger has a show of his work in Washington Depot at KMR Arts, and a really compelling book review from Carl Salader. And I would say this book must have really inspired him, because this is an extremely inspired review. Very, very interesting, very well written, very compelling, and really makes you want to read this book. It's this book famously by a guy called Nico Walker, who's been interviewed a lot. And Nico Walker was just sort of, like an average kid, and, grew up in a sort of middle-class family, and then ended up being a bad heroin addict, robbing banks, and wrote a novel called Cherry from prison. And Carl Salader compares it to sort of like a 21st century follow-up to Catcher in the Rye. And, of course, I feel like Catcher in the Rye is a book that is so relevant to our life right now and to our world today. But he could not put this book down, and he very clearly and interestingly describes why this book was so compelling to him. And I highly recommend that you read this review. And that's it. And the calendar,
Well, and
of course.
lots of calendars still, so get out there and take
Lots of
part in all
stuff
these
going
events
on.
for the autumn.
Well, next week, I look at by the number of announcements that come in, and
Yeah.
I always look, and next week it's just like next week through December already. I have like 32 pages of events.
Then why can't we have more stuff from January to March, which I hate so much?
I know. Well,
So-
yeah.
Well,
It never ends, those months.
Well, because people don't want to go
Don't want to go outside, I know.
Yeah, depending on the weather, things get canceled. It's really rough. So, yeah, this is the time to get out there and do things.
It is
Before January comes.
before.
Don't forget, the beginning of the year used to be March.
Right, which does kind of make sense, doesn't it?
It really does.
Rebirth,
Yeah.
So I just
What at the beginning of the year?
the year used to start in March. I can't remember who it was. It was in 17 something where they hacked out 6 weeks in the calendar.
I think of all my years of schooling, someone would have taught me that.
I
Maybe
know,
they
but
probably
yeah.
did, and I just wasn't listening that day.
Yeah, no, it was really, and there was a huge to do about wages and, well, what are you going to do because you're losing 6 weeks of work, and how's everyone going to adjust? And it's old style, new style dates.
Yeah, it would be kind of nice to celebrate New Year's on March 1st
Yeah,
instead of January.
well, it was actually March 21st. I mean, that was the
Oh.
these.
There you go.
Yeah, the beginning of spring was the beginning of the year. It's really difficult to get. I mean, no wonder people, shall we say, celebrate on December 31st, because it's real hard to get excited about January 1st.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, with that being said, that you won't find that in the Lakeville Journal, but you just heard it here on the air.
You never know what you'll learn.
That's
listening
exactly
to
right.
the show.
I have an old thing that says you'll never know what you're going to hear here.
Well, once
Right.
again, to you and the staff at the Journal for putting on that debate. It's an important process that we need, and this year more than ever, with people's it seems intense desire to want to vote. It was a great event, and you changed venues like they do at a town meeting, which was really good. So
Yeah, we never had to do it before, though, and we didn't expect it. So thanks to everybody for coming, and thanks to the League of Women Voters of Litchfield County, who did so much to help organize it with us.
And thanks to Vance Cannon, without whom.
Oh, yeah. He was he was there and moved the whole sound system. He was great. So many at the high school were just great.
All right. Well, you can read about these stories and more in the Lakeville Journal.
Yeah.
And tricornernews.com, and also on Facebook.
And thank you so much.
And
gonna-
congratulations, Janet Manco, for being the one person who could call in here. Yay!
And,
Thank you.
And you guys, are you going to go on Instagram soon?
I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, we are personally on Instagram. We have Facebook, but we are a small staff.
Boy, do I know.
There's only all those reporters are always going out covering things and writing all the time. So
I know, because I started an Instagram account for the radio station, and that is the one that is the least used because there's so much other stuff.
Well, it's a very visual. Instagram is really about the photos, and we have great photos, but we really try to put them up on Facebook and not dilute too much.
Yeah.
and in the paper.
All right, guys. We'll speak to you next week.
Thank you so
Have a
much.
great week.
Bye.
All right. That is This Week in the Lakeville Journal here on Robin Hood Radio. Once again, tricornernews.com is where you can find the Lakeville Journal.